Welcome to the Rook. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing what a lot of people consider the Matrix. I'm going to be coming from a pedestrian level of psychology. I am not a clinical psychologist, so don't fucking take everything I say to heart. Please do your research on these things. I do have a pen though, and I have a journal. So off the bat, I'm already doing a better job than 85% of the fucking journalists out there. I'm coming for all of your jobs, bitches. But I wanted to talk about this subject in terms of the Matrix because I see a lot of divide in the spiritual community. I also see a lot of sensationalized perspectives of what the Matrix is. And that can be very convoluted within spirituality in general, let alone with this sort of stuff, because we have systems that are set in place to keep us restrained. And I think a lot of people who are conspiracy theorists are on the right path, because I like conspiracy theories. At least shows incentive that people are trying to practice critical thinking skills instead of caring about what size every Kardashian's pants are. That's part of the Matrix. It's the psychological cage, and it, in my opinion, I think that there's systems being ran in place here. I think that the systems as we know as magic were scientific systems that had other names in the past, and we utilize this word in English like magic, and it really makes it seem like a novelty, right? Like astrology is a really good point in that. But the Matrix also, the concept of the Matrix is also in the same category because people think that it's literally like the movie instead of seeing it metaphorically, because it's not exactly like the movies, but what it isn't is, oh, it just happens to be all this, and this is society, and this is the way it is. It's not. This structure where we have to go from point A to point B, and point B to point A, again, every single day of our lives, and then have like all of these pit stops in between to get to this job we don't like, or this job that we were told is going to be good, and it's really fucking not. Like my industry, for instance, the restaurant industry is completely not what you think. If you're just a foodie or somebody that likes to dine out, it's completely corrupt, and I can even just gut that, and we can just dissect it here if you want. But in terms of the Matrix, it's those sorts of things where you perceive things a certain way, and since you benefit with convenience, even though that convenience isn't fulfilling, it's instant gratification and it's a temporary fix for your problems, it's going to affect you psychologically to where you need to have that. And as a result of needing all of this frivolous shit in our lives, we have less constitution for self-reflection, for actual spiritual growth, for for a lot of people, if your beliefs are confronted, people don't want to hear that. Religion and religious oppression is a really good example of that, because from my standpoint, a non-scholastic standpoint, as somebody who deep dives into esoteric research and has a full-fledged practice on the left-hand path that is very, very intimate to me, and I've been actually, but also equally I've been open about, it's not a gotcha mentality that I have that I want to tell people, your God's a false God. This is really what's going on, and there's a lot of people that are so much more intelligent than me that have put these pieces together throughout history, and this is like literally the proof that the concept of what you think is your deity feeds off of war, and the systems that are set in place really, really support that idealistic, concept. Not the idealistic concept, that doesn't make any sense, that ideal, because we are ran by a fucking war machine and, a glorified oil company. And I, as an American from the divided states of AmeriCorp, know that shit firsthand, especially coming from a really high crime area in a very expensive state where it's almost impossible to leave. And I got out because I got lucky. And that's the reality. Despite how much work ethic and grit there was that took to try to get out of that situation, I ended up getting really lucky and I got out. And That one was when I was much younger, and I was already fatigued and in survival mode as an older millennial and all this shit, victim, 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 whatever. That also contributes to it. We're spending so much of our time doing shit we don't want to do and thinking that's what we want to do because the incentive is a paycheck that we don't really like, right? Like honestly, most people, we can agree that we're not happy where we are financially, and some of that can be a reflection on our own issues, and some of it is a lot of it's a reflection on the system. But the problem with that is a lot of us aren't willing to make sacrifices to get out of that. We still want our 45 pump fucking Starbucks 30 pronoun frappuccino, and we still want our Netflix and chill, and we don't care if Netflix has gone up 3,000% and half the shows are gone. We still got to do it. This is the problem. That's part of the matrix, is we've normalized so much comfort that we aren't prepared for the discomfort. And for me personally, working on the left-hand path, I work closely with fallen angels, and I've learned a lot about discipline, and I'm on my journey. I'm halfway there externally, and it was a very, very long year for me to get to that point. And I've learned a lot. It's not about, I don't care about any of the other shit. I really don't. I feel like I've learned from working with demons to disconnect from those things, but don't disconnect so much that you become self-righteous and addicted to that, because that can be a vice too, right? And that's a mental cage, and that's what my point is with this matrix mentality, is we're in this mental cage. All of us are in our mental cages, and we feel, I can't do this, this is ableism, this is this, and then we're divided because we are supposed to be more collective. I don't think that we're supposed to be kumbaya, happy-go-lucky, everybody's going to get along. But I think that, what I've learned from working with Belial is to treat yourself physically, emotionally, and mentally like you live in a lawless society. And that really was a portion of the driving factor for me to make better choices in my life, externally and internally. But it makes sense because he also told me that we do live in a lawless society, it's just not ours. And he'll like mic drop that sort of stuff and then just leave you be, and then you gotta sort it out. And it's a lot. And I've learned that I as a person who thinks they've cracked out of the matrix, because I know the food industry, even internationally in certain regards, really well. As a professional cook, as somebody who gives a fuck, I can tell you when something says made in the USA, where it was processed, how and why. Like honey, I can go into all, like seriously, like with like actual the product honey. Usually it comes from China and it's depollinated and it's fucking synthesized and filled with high fructose corn syrup. Then it's sent to Argentina. Then they send it to, they have no fucking class. The government there has no laws or legislation on food quality, so they say this is organic and perfect, and then the US buys it and bottles it in their facilities and goes, this is an organic product because Argentina said it. And our laws state that if another country says it's good, then that's good enough for us. And most people won't fucking know that, and then they wonder when they're feeding the, don't get the shit in the, get the shit in the honey bear if you want. I can't even say that because Big Brother is going to get mad. And that's the state that we're living in. We have to be cryptic with how we talk. And like, read 1984 if you haven't. I got onto that shit way late in life. Just, I've always meant to get around to it. And you will see that's the state that we're living in right now. But this matrix revolves around that. It revolves around the choices that we're making. And because we don't want to be accountable, because we're broken down, you have to understand that when I talk about empathy, I'm not coming from this place of like forgive everybody and love and light. I don't give a fuck about you. If you try to break people and you don't want to fix your shit, I wish you well, but I can't have you in my fucking energy. If you're a type of person that's real and will hold me accountable, but you're not foaming at the mouth when you're pointing out my flaws and you're there for all the good shit, then you can speak. That's where I am, and that's where my path led me. That doesn't mean that I'm that ego, though, can make you susceptible to thinking I'm not in the fucking matrix because I'm in my own mental cage. I'm still really engulfed in hustle culture after leaving hustle culture and coming to a very quiet place like Australia where hustle culture is really not a thing here. And there's pros and cons to that for sure, but life is a lot slower, and it should be in a lot of regards. But I've had a really difficult time deprogramming that aspect. I have a really good work ethic and I do a lot in my life, but I used to feel like because I did that I would earn respect and I would feel validated and all of this shit, right? And that was my mental matrix. And then when I really started working on my path and starting with Lilith, I started to realize how much confidence I really lacked and how much was me just because I didn't give a fuck about speaking up doesn't mean that I didn't care, and I thought that's what that meant. And then when you really break free, I think that happens when you get a bit older too and you start reaching middle age and you're like, all of a sudden I just don't care about what people think, and it's the most beautiful thing that somebody can say something to me and it doesn't affect me because I know my flaws and I'm working on myself, right? So outside of that, because I'm not trying to get off topic, I have a point. I still can't sit here on my pedestal and be like, well, everybody else is doing this. That's how you break out of the matrix, because I feel like that's part of it. Once I started to step out, I stopped eating a lot of the food and buying a lot of the products. Like, well, I'm here being a walking billboard for a band that doesn't know that I exist and never fucking will, and they probably didn't profit off of this shirt. It was made in a sweatshop in fucking India, and I'm just a walking advertisement. Like, literally, that's the shit that I see, and I don't want to have this negative connotation with that, because that is like really a low vibrational way of thinking. And low vibrational way of thinking isn't necessarily bad if you learn how to like exist in it and navigate it and explore it. That's my opinion. I feel like there's different types of vibrations with that, because demons get categorized as low vibrational beings, but it's not, they're fucking up your vibes. Like, there's a whole spectrum of that, right? Like, you can be toxic in the light just as you can be too dark in the dark. But my point is when you get engulfed into this world of spirituality, especially the left-hand path, in my experience, it's very jarring, because you think that this is where I came from, and this is where an example that the deities told me about my matrix. I was under the impression, because I have it all figured out. That's me. That's my flaw. Because I've been in the forefront. I've had to fucking walk through the fire. I've been laughed at and burnt. I've been humiliated. I've done the worst shit. I've said the worst shit. I've been there. I've had the worst shit said to me by the people who should never. And I've been just broken down. And I had to recalibrate and build myself up with all these pieces that were broken. And when you build yourself up, you feel sanctity in the dark when you feel drawn to this path, for me personally. And I found peace in the dark because the abyss speaks back to you. And I'm not getting off topic, as I've been like really trying not to do that. The abyss will speak back. You know how they say when you look at the abyss speaks back? It does. And that abyss speaking back helps you crack out of your mental cage. The abyss will ask you how you're doing. And it will be in the most eerie, like a lonely feeling way. I went through this in working. I've gone through this, especially working with Leviathan and working with Belial when I started to do astral stuff. I've talked about this on Kitchen Occultist. We're just putting that channel on pause because we have a huge project that we're working on, and it's taking a lot of yummy effort. So I'll be going back and forth if I reiterate things from the past. All apologies. But the abyss stares back, and you realize that you're very susceptible to being not only in the same situations as other people, you'll be directed and pushed to the edge a bit, right? But not only that, you have to really understand that even when you're growing and healing, there's so much you don't know about yourself and things that you don't know you're doing. And I actually want to share a recent example about a mental matrix. I have been really struggling to get this podcast off the ground. And every project that I've been working on that's on pause, it's because I need a solution to make it move forward. So I'm going to just share a little bit about my work ethic, and I want it to come from a place with a point of humility for me. I work very diligently to the point where it breaks me down. I don't want to ever make this look easy because I've been told shit on TikTok. People even thought, oh, your husband probably doesn't do shit. He does a lot. He cooks. He does. But anyways, I have 4 kids. I have an autistic child. I have fibromyalgia. I have all of this fucking stress. I'm the mom and the dad in a lot of regards for my 2 eldest. And their clubs were taken from them because the economy's crashing here, right? And so I had to step my game up to help them with some of their goals they have for like martial arts. I have to show up every day and fucking work out with them because they need that right now. And I still force myself to make time for this. I work on my gnosis every single fucking day, and if I can't, it's on the priority list. I got journals here, and I use them. I got one for my homestead. I've got one for just fitness stuff that I'm progressing on, and I keep track of all that. I've got one for my gnosis with Belial, just right here. I've got one just for tarot cards. My kids got me all of these really cool stickers for my birthday, and it was cool because I wanted some tarot stickers for this journal, and I thought it was really cool. But anyways, I work on all these things, right? And when I come back here to do the podcast, everything keeps fucking up, and I fall apart because I'll try like 3 or 4 times in the day to get in here for a half an hour, because when I am in here most of the time, it's usually in the morning and it's with 2 small children, and I've got a lot of shit to get done. But I felt like there were so many blockages. The point is, there were so many blockages with this podcast, and I couldn't process 4K footage, and then my shit wasn't compatible with my software, and then everything, the mic wasn't working, all these things. And my husband pointed out, he says, because he's really opening up with his spiritual path, and he teaches me a lot, but not in a one of those cringy weird ways. But he says, like, hey, I've been really working on myself and learning about ego and stuff, because he's kind of newer on his path. I have liberty to talk about anything about him, by the way. He told me specifically he could say everything, but I'm still always have dignity. But he told me, he said, it's probably your ego blocking it. And he told me, I'm not coming from like a mean place or anything. It's just, you're very like, I'm going to go fight the storm. And it never works. And in my path, that's been a problem. I've been told lately to stand still, to sit in silence and just be still. And I do, and then I get antsy, and I'm like, I get depressed because I need to work on shit outside of just domestic stuff and being, a home educator and a homesteader and a gardener and all this stuff, and my practice, like, and a wife, I do all of this stuff. I'm tired, man, like, for real, but I feel good. And he told me that, and I was like, I have to change my perspective. It should be more fun, because that was the whole point, was to come on here and to be convivial and talk about my spiritual experiences and not feel the pressure of that, and not feel sorry for myself, because there's a lot of pressure for me. But my mentality has been wrong, because I'm very cutthroat, grit. Fuck that shit. I'm gonna fucking do it. No one's gonna fucking say that's the thing that fuels me, is when people say you can't. I'm like fucking Waterboy, how he gets all stupid, he's like, and starts going for it. That's me with all the things I'm passionate about, because it's hard. Even making videos on a small platform, it's really, really hard, because there's a lot of external forces that can have a problem with that. And I've had to go through a lot of shit, like way heavier than that, right? And I don't feel sorry for myself anymore, because I'm breaking out of that mental cage, and I'm realizing that if you study, like, let's get into theology for a minute with history and where we are. If we're getting a bit Abrahamic, and I always go toward like the Book of Enoch and even like Paradise Lost, which I understand that that's like a bit biased, but I accept that it's a really great perspective. But with the Book of Enoch, the angels, they seemed like a lot of them had really good intentions, right? I talked about this last episode. They wanted one wife. A lot of them took one wife to themselves, and they wanted a family, and they wanted like these things. And I have permission to share this sort of stuff. I just stop sometimes because I hear heavy messages sometimes, man. There's an aspect to some of the angels that I've connected with really closely, like the beginning aspects of them that hold the whole world's, like, the weight. Like Belial is one of them. I've really connected with that early aspect. And I cry every fucking time because it's not okay. And I'll do it like with tarot, and I do black mirror scrying and, fire scrying. I have different methods of communication with spirits, and a lot of it is just different ways to connect and to bond. It really boils down to that. It's a very good experience to try to do different things that feel like they resonate with you. But it seems like there's so much weight, consequences for freedom and expansion. And the more that I study the Book of Enoch, and the more that I ask, Belial in particular, because I have a very close, connection with him, and I have a very comfortable connection with him, and that's just been established for years. I connect with the fallen angel aspect, not just the Goetia aspect of demons. I like to go dig. I just feel like it resonates a lot more for me personally. All of it's like good information, but I'm very curious about things, and he's very candid, and he's told me I've freaked out about talking about things because I have so much conviction in what I believe in, but I get into my own head, my own matrix. Like, what if other people think that I think that, like, that only I can speak to him like this, this stupid gatekeeping shit, because I genuinely have a deep connection with him, and he wants me to just be myself and just have fun with this. Like, it's really his thing. There's no message, the things he shares with me, he tells me to articulate in my way, because he enjoys seeing us do that. He enjoys creative people, and he enjoys people learning just the art of language and being conversational. Like, where Lucifer will talk a lot, and he's very conversational, and obviously he's very intelligent, but Belial will study and play chess with you, and he'll make you think you're playing chess when he's playing checkers too. It's fucked. And that's why I believe this is external, because I don't think, not that I doubt myself in those areas of intelligence, but I don't think I can come up with half of the shit that they tell me. And then, like, it's the synchronicities with divination and not looking for clues. That's what I get a lot of newcomers to my platforms, and I've never intended to be like a guru. I don't believe in that. I believe in, like, I'm a human being, and I fuck up, and I have my flaws, and I have my philosophies. But people will ask me about that sort of stuff. Like, what do I do? You have to just be genuine and have, in my opinion, the desire for knowledge. And for me, it's breaking out of this shit. And you gotta be cautious, because with working with him in particular, with Belial, he will show you the matrix. He will break that shit. He will show you what the world really is. And it has to be in steps for me, because it's overwhelming. It really is how fucked this system is, how it's ran on hatred and divide. I've talked to you guys about the art of war. I felt really good, by the way, that I've gotten multiple messages on YouTube and on Instagram that people picked up the art of war, or they listened to the audiobook, or they found one like at an op shop. It's so cool, because I wasn't expecting that. But the art of war has taught me a lot of a philosophy of leadership in different areas of my life. And it's also taught me how the system is really ran, because it runs on divide. And I've known that for a very long time. I've accepted that for a very long time. And I've been okay with being hated by both sides of an argument for a very long time. But when you see that, you know, within the first tactical manual of war on a mass scale talks about like dividing the people, and people are still fighting about it, it's frustrating. It's frustrating when you see people fighting over dumb fucking shit, and then serious shit, but they're gotcha mentality. I was right. I used to do that shit when I was younger. I used to argue with Christians all the time because I went to a fundamentalist Baptist school for a few years simply to keep me out of fights, because I lived in just like a really rough area. Like we would move a lot because like the shit just follows you, you know? So I had it really good compared to a lot of my friends, in all honesty. But I went to really tough schools, and these schools, kids don't fuck around. These schools, I was getting into fights all the time. There's fucking knife fights, metal detectors. You got the bomb sniffing dogs in the classrooms. This is junior high school, by the way, in California. Like this is the shit. So I was getting into a lot of trouble, and I was put into a religious school just to shut me up. Quiet country school. I have no religious trauma personally, but I learned to use the Bible combatively because I was surrounded by perverts and hypocrites. I really was, and I don't give a fuck to say that, because the people that I'm talking about that were perverted are dead now because they were killed in prison for pedophilia. So I have no remorse for that, and I'm glad that they're fucking gone. And I wish I could have laughed at them seeing their way out, but that would have been just egotistical, and that wouldn't have helped anybody in that situation. And I am not even at liberty to be upset outside of being upset that people get hurt, because I wasn't affected personally. However, knowing all of this sort of shit going on at a young age, I started to study the King James Version of the Bible, because I used to combat. I got detention every fucking day at that school, literally, and it would always be something, dress code or this and that, and I'd be like, tell me in the Bible where it says I can't wear sweatpants because I'm going to practice in 10 minutes. Tell me in the Bible where it says you can't do this, and I would always dissect it and study it to use it as a weapon, and they would just tell me to shut up and, you know, go back to class or whatever, go to detention, and you don't know what you're talking about, and that's the devil. The devil gets scapegoated for fucking everything, doesn't he? But in all seriousness, because I had some fortitude with the Holy Bible, I started to utilize that in my 20s for gotcha arguments against radicals on YouTube, actually, and I started to gain traction in the witchcraft community, and I was like, fuck, this is like not what I want to do, even though it was what I'm supposed to do. And I ran away from it, and I've been doing that on and off because people get into my head, or I freak out when shit starts to work. And that's my matrix that I'm breaking out of, because I'm unhappy when I'm not filming. And not that my family doesn't make me happy, but I don't care who you are. You need more than that, than just being a parent or just being a spouse or being this. Like I need more than that. So, and that doesn't mean I need to make sacrifices that would affect them. However, I have to recalibrate my ego. And when you do that, you do unblock a lot of stuff energetically. And I remember, I'm going to kind of go full circle here, so I'm sorry. I'm really trying to get used to speaking like publicly without editing too much, because I don't have time to edit. But I asked Belial, like, if he went through a process of wanting to break down ever, because they evolve as we evolve. Spirits evolve as we evolve. There's many ways to do that, and I can get into that for what I know so far. But I asked him if there was any aspect of him that had that guilt, that, you know, this just freaking out because things aren't working out your way. And he said, yes. And I said, what did you do? And he was like, I shut the fuck up and I stood still. And I'm like, fuck. because that's been my lesson. That's been a hard lesson for me, is not being able to be still in my own energy. And when I realized this, I realized that that's still the matrix. They still get you, you know. And when you start to realize that they're not as clever as they think they are, as that we think they are, we were just very distracted and worn down, you start to realize, hey, with a little bit of fucking grit, we really can flip this around a bit. And it's not going to be this euphoric victory, but we need balance. There's always going to be corruption in the world and evil and terrible things happening. And that's an unfortunate side effect to everything, because we could have all just been glorifying Yahweh, right? But even that sort of sense, in that matrix, think of Yahweh, the war god, right? Even if there was no war, which they say the second coming will come when there is no war, and Christians don't seem to get that part. I wonder why. We're at war with ourselves, and that feeds that energy, that Godhead, you know? And when we stay still and calm in our energy, we don't feed it power, but we give that to ourselves, and we recalibrate and we break out of that matrix. And it was just this really beautiful, like, full, you know, turnaround, because that's really what happens with working with him specifically. He seems to really just perfect divine timing, and it's like, how fucking brilliant was that timing? You know, it's always artistically appreciated, I guess. I know I sound a bit cringy, but being still is how I'm breaking out of my matrix, because it's been hard for me to be alone in my own mind and my own energy. Even without I can meditate, I do brown noise, I do all these really healthy things very consistently. But being still without those distractions, and without just needing to meditate for a reason because I know it's, you know, just being still and being okay with things not working out, because you're not a fucking dictator. You will learn so much about yourself. You'll learn so much philosophy. And it makes sense, because I remember one of my first times working a Friday night on the line in restaurants, in high volume kitchens, 600 covers a night. I was really, really, no, I was in the fucking weeds, as we call it in kitchen lingo. Where the ticket machine hits the floor, the tickets hit the floor, you consolidate them, fire all your shit, work shit, and then they're on the floor again. And that's like that for all night. And you literally get like a form of PTSD, where I would get night tremors hearing the ticket machine and just wake up thinking I had orders to do. Like, I'm not even kidding, and I'm not like, I wasn't affected as negative as I sounded. It was like this fucked thing. I was like, I fucking hate it, because you'd hear bzz, 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 and you'd be like, oh shit, ticket. And it's like, you know, it sucks. However, somebody had told me, a coworker that was more experienced, I don't even remember their name, but they pulled me aside and they said, honey, give yourself 10 seconds and think about nothing, and it'll all come together, because you know what you're doing. This is going to be growth for you. And I remember he said that, and I was like, all right, man, I got you. And I did that, and fucking just ran circles around the rest of that service, and it stuck with me forever. And I know that person's probably never going to see this video, but thank you, because that was a philosophy that stuck with me for a lot of areas in being centered. And then when it came to this again, I had failed to remember those lessons, because my ego was so driven and focused on breaking out of this shit and getting the fuck out, that I forgot the whole essence why I'm doing this is because it's a really great opportunity to connect, to be sociable, because I don't have a big social life right now, and it's been really hard post-COVID, just for a multitude of reasons. For one, it's because I don't have the desire to socialize as much, and it's not because of depression. I'm just really focused on myself. I have peace. As much as my life can be chaotic, my vibe, my energy, you come to my home, is peaceful. And even with all of our chaos going on, it's peaceful. There's peace. And I don't want that interrupted. And if it's interrupted, it better be a goddamn good reason. And I'm fine taking accountability. I can do that all day long these days. But you're not going to come and interrupt my peace with drama that doesn't involve me. So that's why I don't want to socialize, because my matrix was ignoring myself. Because for one, I felt guilty for having a lot of blessings. I'm being serious. That sounds stupid, but I'm really good at a lot of shit. And I always felt weird because people would give you shit about it. And then they would, oh, you should do this. But then they'd be like, fuck. So you would dilute yourself, and then you dilute your intelligence. Not because everybody's dumb around you. It's just you don't want to always teach. You don't always want to. I'm happy coming on here and doing that. I don't always want to do that with every single person that I know. And I got really burnt out because all of that energy was going to other sources, to people that just came for advice and rarely took it and just called to get more. And since I've been here, I've just really, I needed that. So if you're going through that, it's okay, but just please check up on yourself and still get out of the house. And I still get out of the house. I force myself when I don't want to because I'm like busy with this shit. But you have to live in the present. That's getting out of the matrix and not having like this purpose. Like, I gotta go here, I gotta get fuel, I gotta go here, I gotta drop the kids off here, I gotta go buy this, I can't do it anymore, man. I'm not in it anymore. I fucking cannot do it. Like, I am more fulfilled growing my own food. I would love to fucking do more outdoor things like that. Like, I would love to have chickens. I've been learning about it. Not lately, because I'm really too busy to learn about chickens right now. But I learned about chicken coops and stuff, and it would be cool to get into like beekeeping. And I know that sounds crazy if people knew me in real life. Like, you're gonna beekeep? You can't even handle a fucking mosca around you. I hate bugs. So and that's fun to deal with when you're working with infernals, because they're gonna put you through a lot of tests to get over those phobias. I'm letting you know that. For those of you who are new and asking lots of questions, be prepared to, if you don't like confrontation, too bad. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm cool with it, but it's not easy, and I don't want to make this shit look easy. And I make it sound easy sometimes because I'm just trying to flow with the things that are going on. But my matrix was doing that, was giving way too much to people, and now I give that shit to myself, and I'm doing good because of it. I'm getting my money straight, I have my health straight, I've got my family, I work on my issues. The ones that aren't fixed, I'm studying them, and I'm fixing her externally, internally, and fallen angels will take you to the depths of that too. They will take you to the depths of your soul, past life stuff. It sounds silly, right? It sounds like you just got a good imagination and you're just sitting there and it's so fucking deep it hurts. I know that sounds so stupid, but it does. And when you break out of this stupid system, like for instance, I'll give you a good example of the Matrix as of recent. All of these fucking people are shooting cans of beer, right? Because I think there was a trans person on there. I literally don't even know who was on the damn can. I've just been seeing people shoot beer and then they buy the other brand, not realizing that the same firm that owns that brand, that rage bait brand, that they're making a lot of money off of, because they know statistically how many people in their demographics going to buy booze just to fucking blow it up for camera and give free advertising to the people who are bigoted and hate trans people or hate the idea of it, etc., etc., etc. Because I'm not saying that people who hate trans like I don't care. That's the fucking Matrix. You motherfucking adults are fighting over a goddamn beer that is made out of shitty fucking rice anyways, and it's water and piss together, and you're fighting over it. Meanwhile, these piece of shit oligarchs are just siphoning the world, and we're fighting over a beer because of some fucking trans bitch on a can. I don't give a fuck. That's your biggest problem in life, then you don't have a lot of problems. And I'm not gonna hold back anymore. And I think that's one of the blockages, because the demons even told me I fucking dance around shit way too much, because when I'm at my full capacity, people do not want to hear it. And they think that when I talk about myself that it's just easy. I've got to face myself and my own shadows in the fucking mirror every time there's a sense of humility needed, because I've just been pushed to freedom. So I can do that for myself because I've just been just degraded so fucking much, and I've done it to myself. I've been so self-depreciating. But when you break out of this shit, you're still in a matrix because you think, well, you fucking idiots, right? Break out of it again. You keep breaking out of these mental cages until you realize none of this shit fucking matters. Like none of it. I'm in the middle of weight loss right now, and I've been struggling with my weight on and off for the past 20 years. I do not give a fuck about how the external. I am having fun wearing clothes that fit good. I'm having fun having lots of energy, and I'm feeling great at 39 years old. Like, I really do, with fibromyalgia. Like, I'm doing a lot of cool shit now, and I feel you can do it. You can do it. It's up here, man. It really is. If you feel, oh, I'm getting old, I'm too fat, I'm too fucking stupid, then you're gonna feel that way. But if you feel like, no, man, I really see other people that are much older than me and they're doing all kinds of shit. They're running marathons, they're fucking lifting weights. I can do that too. Or like Ethan Suplee, he's an actor. He was on My Name is Earl. I think he was at around 600 pounds, and he lost most of it. And he fucking just showed up every day, and he looks like a completely different person, spirit, everything, right? Just vitality. It's not about all this shit. It's not about fat phobia and healthy at every fucking size and skinny fucking privilege and doing this, doing that. That shit exists. I understand that as a fucking overweight person who was 90 pounds heavier. I understand that completely. But I also, as a person who was 90 pounds heavier than I am now and who's struggled with body image my whole life, think that a lot of this shit is inflated just a bit, because I'm not saying that because I haven't had all these fucking terrible experiences, they don't happen to people. That would be absolutely super turbulent to say. It'd be just terrible. But a lot of shit seems inflated to me. A lot of fucking stuff seems inflated, and people get stuck in their own cage. Oh, well, this and this, and people don't accept me for being this weight, and people don't accept me for being then fuck those people. Either be the weight or not. That's what I'm saying, because that's the thing for me. When I was 300 pounds, I didn't like it. I didn't like it because I like clothes, and I didn't struggle with energy. I have a lot more energy now, but I've always worked really hard, and I had to work hard to maintain that. That's what I'm trying to say, because when you're obese, you either keep gaining or you lose, or you work to maintain it. And not every obese person's gorging 4,000 cupcakes a day like you see in movies and shit. That's literally not the case for me. A lot of it has to do with lifestyle, with when you eat, the macros and micros that you're eating at what time. There's a lot of factors. It's calories in, calories out, and I maintained that weight because I worked really hard and I did exercise, but I also know how to cook professional fucking gourmet food, so it's a curse. And not only that, but my husband's a retired pastry chef, and please, it's not fun. But and the thing is he loves to bake, so I just have to say no. He doesn't. He's been amazing through this whole process. He's been so kind and polite and not an ass about. I've never had to be shamed in a relationship about my weight. I feel really bad that people have. But I think at the same time, when it comes to weight or our vices or our struggles, because weight can be a struggle and or a vice, right? It really can be, with the addiction to food for some people, all these other factors, trauma. It's just trauma. I feel like every pound is just like a pound of trauma, and the more you heal, it gets better. Like that's my perspective on it. But my point is, without rambling like a fucking bumblebee, I literally do not care about anything but just feeling good. And I don't care. Everything else can be an afterthought. Who the fuck am I trying to impress? My husband loves me. My husband thinks that I'm beautiful and sexy. My husband desires me. That's all I care about. And I don't do it for him. He was always really kind to me. Nothing's changed. I feel a lot more confident, but my mental cage was different than somebody else's mental cage, right? But what happens is when people have their mental cages in this matrix, they all congregate. 1984, War is peace. War is peace because we congregate when there's fucking conflict. And that's how they get to us. They make us all congregate in these small subcultural groups, and we feel victimized. I'm oppressed because I'm fat. I'm oppressed because I'm this. I'm oppressed because I'm that. I'm oppressed because I'm a Christian. I'm oppressed because... I'm not talking about real oppression either. I'm not talking about women in Iran. That's oppression. I'm not talking about African American people in fucked up demographics in the United States with food deserts, more police than they have fucking school lockers, all of this other shit, right? I understand that firsthand as a fucking white, half white, passing, whatever you want to call me, biracial white fucking woman who lived in that shit. I saw what other people had to go through. I understand that there is, at certain points, at face value, privilege. I get all of that shit. I understand. That doesn't mean that people who have more privilege in certain areas are just completely privileged in every other area. It means that they're probably fucked up in other areas. They probably have a lot of pressure. They're probably getting beaten at home. They're probably fucking, there's all kinds of factors you don't understand. We don't get that. Like, I used to always think that when I was a kid, because I was like, fuck the jock and the cheerleader. Fuck those putos. I'm the fucking weird kid. But then you realize those kids, they're the way they are because their parents are probably vicariously living through them. That football kid who might have really good looks and this and that, he doesn't want to do that shit. His dad wants him to do that shit, That girl that's a cheerleader and she dresses very provocative and the school shames her for it, she probably has some trauma that you don't want to fucking know about. That's where I'm trying to get to. Like, we have to stop this fucking bullshit about a beer and a trans person on a can of beer and making it just, these companies operate these days on rage bait, first of all, because the other types of manipulative marketing is not working anymore, and nobody's seeing this. I am not on social media nearly as much as I used to or would like to, because it can be very addicting. I have a 10 to 15 minute limit a day, if that. And most days I don't do it, because you can spend 2 hours on TikTok very easily. Even if you're on for a few minutes. There was a couple times where I was like monitoring how much time I spent online. And even though I wasn't on there straight, throughout my day, it adds up to like 4 hours of screen time, non-productive screen time. Because editing, when I would edit from my phone, I didn't count that. Certain things I'm being productive and I'm working, but I didn't want to do that. That didn't sit right with me. And so I limit it to a very short amount of time because I want to keep up with current events. I like to see how people think and they communicate in the comments, and I would leave comments too. And I think I would get too engulfed in that at times on social media, especially when I was younger. However, I notice how much divide there is over everything. Every fucking thing is a problem, and we will congregate. You and I can be on different sides of the fence, right? Like, here's a good example for you. For people who are marksmen and pro arms, for whatever reason, I am in that category, but I do have a balanced opinion on that, and I can elaborate that on the future. I think there's a huge fucking problem. I think there needs to be regulations and mental health checks and all this proper, criteria that we should have. Like, it should be harder to get a gun than it is to get a car, to get a license. There should be certain steps that you should take, because people who are proficiently trained, it's discipline, it's consistency, it's repetitive motion, it's doing things very slowly and properly, and there's not a lot of that shit, right? There's a lot of people with no trigger discipline, getting guns, making YouTube videos, and pointing right at the cameraman. Oh, it's not loaded, it's okay. Anyways, that person and me, I am obviously, I'm not a homophobic person. I'm absolutely not. But somebody else in that community most likely is, because of stereotypes and just political leniencies because of that one issue, right? That is a statistic, and that's a thing. There's a lot of homophobic people that are radical right, that are pro-arms. And I'm pro-arms, but I'm very liberal with my social standing. And I'm pretty on the fence with a lot of things, but not neutral for avoidance, neutral because I really don't give a fuck and I got my opinion, or I don't have a formulated enough opinion on a subject to speak and open my big stupid mouth, which most people should feel the same way about themselves, in my opinion. But some homophobe and myself can really disagree on that shit, right? Like, really, if I see that sort of stuff where people start really getting fucking hateful against gay people, LGBT, I'm not the one. I'm gonna fucking say something. But I can guarantee you that gentleman and I will bond over something that might be a social and political problem. Like, there are people in the Democratic Party who are anti-gun, but they have been charged and proven guilty for illegal arms trades from Mexico. So those are problems. You know, those are things, if people stopped black and white fighting, they would go, fuck, wait a minute, there's a problem here. One woman, she had said that an AR-15 was so heavy and it should be banned because it's the weight of 10 super heavy boxes for moving, when that particular weapon is about 6.5 pounds without all the other equipment on it, and somebody that's much younger than me and smaller than me can absolutely operate it. And but people who are anti-gun, because guns can be scary, right? Because they're in the wrong hands of the wrong people. But you have people telling you shouldn't have guns that have armed security, including celebrities. We gotta fucking sort this shit out at some point. And I know that's a hot topic, but for fuck's sakes, we gotta do something here. This shit's not getting any easier, and I know there's just a lot of complex problems just with that whole subject. And it takes smart people who are working on themselves to sit the fuck down and make laws going, hey, we got to balance this out. But that's not the society we're in. We're in a society where our politicians are completely bought out globally. Everybody's bought out, and we know it. Not everybody, but a lot of people, right? Because if I say everybody, that's a fucking breeding ground for a problem. And Big Brother doesn't like that. Big Brother doesn't seem to like free speech that much as he says he does. And anyways, fuck Big Brother. That's our system. We're ran by corrupt politicians who are paid off, that have no constitution, no moral compass, and they're equally insecure as they are wealthy. And the people that are above them, these fuckheads that are running the show, that it's the same thing with them. And people don't see that. People think these people are so perfect because they got money. They are so fucking weak, and they lack any resilience or constitution because they got to keep paying. They got to keep putting walls up with money and people, and they got to pay. They can lose it all very quickly. They can lose that. Like, if you guys saw what happened with GameStop in the United States, where a handful of Redditors took down the fucking investment firm, like within a couple days, because they bought all the stocks and they refused to sell them, and the investment firm tried to get the laws changed to say, hey, they shouldn't be allowed to fucking crash the market like that, which is what the whole investment firm did. Their whole portfolio was exactly what these Redditors did, and the company collapsed. That took a couple days with a handful of people that agreed on something. Didn't give a fuck about their weight, their height, their sexual orientation. Didn't give a shit about who they voted for, what color their skin was. None of this shit. If they fucking like lemons or limes, they just got together and they said, this stuff is really wrong and we can take it down. And it took a small group of people with a little bit of intelligence and consistency and a common goal. And boom, that shit went under really quickly. A multi-billion-dollar investment firm went under within a week because of a couple fucking people on the internet. A couple of us. And that's what baffles me, is we're all in a state of desperation because we need to survive, we need to pay bills, so we put up with shit. I did that shit in the restaurant industry, and that's part of this matrix. That's where I'm trying to get at. I'm not trying to ramble, and like I said, I will try to become more organized with my conversational skills. I appreciate just if you made it this long to this fucking video. But in my industry, in the restaurant world, it's ran by slave labor. It's ran by interns. It's ran by people. Like in Napa Valley, I used to stage. Staging is exchanging your work for free for experience, because you have to earn your keep in working in those places sometimes. So there, I've seen students coming out of the Culinary Institute of America, which is the fancy school up north in California. Beautiful fucking place too, because I went and visited. My hood ass didn't go. I went to the fucking other culinary school that got sued because the amount of money that most students had to pay back for their student loans a month didn't equate to the wage that line cooks make on average in California. So my school got sued, and a lot of people didn't have to pay for their tuition, which is really great. But however, that whole system is ran off of slave labor. Like, it's interns, it's kids that get out of culinary school that have a lot of proficient skills, and they're working 4 or 5 months, 6 days a week, hoping to get hired. I've seen and talked to those people. I've seen like dishwashers in kitchens. They're always like, old, mija, ¿quieres cristal meth? Está bueno, está poquito. It's like fucking dudes offering me meth to stay awake and do dishes. That's normal. That's normal in that shit. I've seen grown men break down, and on just because they make it feel like in the restaurant industry, like you owe, like it's war. And doing 600 covers in a night is a lot. 600 fucking like covers is just a plate. That's not including all the appetizers, desserts. That's like a person. And you feel like it's weird. Like you leave like almost kind of traumatized some nights. You're like, fuck, man, how the fuck do we get through that? It's like crazy. It's intense, and it's like people yelling at you and shit. And I've seen grown men like cry and leave. And I don't, part of me probably at one point was probably, man, fucking just do it. Another part of me, when I started to get more mature, you know, in my career and just age and stuff, I'd be like, no, wait, this, I don't know how men think, especially when I was younger. Now I do a little bit. This is not cool for him. I can get away with that shit, right? And there's a lot of shit men can get away with. I ain't gonna be one. I'm not one of those chicks that's gonna be like pro all the incels. Fuck you. Get your shit together. Man, woman, whatever. Get your shit together. I am just saying, seeing that shit as a woman, seeing like grown men cry cooking, it made me realize this is fucked up. This isn't just, you know, this is why at home those men are probably fucking, most people in the restaurant industry, it's a really huge problem. There's a huge demographic of alcoholism because that industry is so fucking stressful. Like, my husband and I both walked out of that industry, and we it was too much. Like, I'm glad I did, because I didn't want to give it up when I moved here. I was ready to work, and my visa didn't allow me to. And I know that the universe had other plans. I was aligned with other synchronicities in the universe to prevent me from getting back into that industry, because I was willing to just sacrifice my own dignity to work as hard as possible to prove a point. And the whole time I was in a mental cage, because these people were like, you fucking sucker. And I knew it too, because I'm smart. I'm not stupid. I knew it. And I'm like, fuck, they got me, because they know. I know more cooks that are so fucking passionate about what they do and they hate their jobs than ones that don't. Like, we get paid, this was in the mid 2000s and teen 2000s, I guess, whatever you want to call it, $8 to $9 an hour in California. In California, where it's expensive, like I'm talking like 2015, 2014, 2010, you know, those sort of places. I've seen during evaluation, you know, every 3 months we never get raises. I've seen men get I've seen rage in kitchens plenty of times. That's another thing too. It's so, like, I really hate that I do well in chaos, and like there's this aspect of my spirit that just like I'm ready to get some. If somebody wants to fuck around and find out, like I'm already like fucking there. I'm like, fuck you, let's go. You want to intimidate me? I will fucking destroy your spirit. I will humiliate you and make you you know, that is me at my toxic level when I am bullied. And it's hard because you see men in this industry, because it's male predominant in kitchens, getting enraged over other shit, and sometimes they take that shit on people around them. And I've had to deal with that. I've had to deal with people putting their hands on me and me like ready to fucking throw. And you're talking about a bunch of really intense people in a 114 degree Fahrenheit kitchen with hot ass stoves, fucking deep fryer oil. Knives. There's a lot of factors when you work in kitchens. And I'm not trying to make it seem too dramatic, because not every place I've worked at was like that. There's a lot of places where people are very militant and disciplined and act appropriate, like some of the more bougie ass places. But when you're working in the fucking hood, you're getting the hood. Like you're getting it, you know. And those are like the best people to work with, though, because they'll have your back when shit really goes down. But that's another aspect I just wanted to make a point with this whole matrix thing, is like that brotherhood comes from pain. And this is just on a small scale working in kitchens, but I'm trying to paint a picture where it's not so serious, but it's serious because it doesn't seem like it should be that serious, right? And if things were run properly, like if we lived in a time where we can just go to a tavern and it might be full and it's busy and you're working hard, but it's fucking good, that's not the reality. Our matrix, at least in the restaurant industry, is you need to turn fucking tables as quickly as possible to maximize profits. And that means if those motherfuckers come in 4 minutes before closing, you better serve them. And it takes a toll on you and it breaks you down. And I have had so many delays and hiccups and financial obstacles and personal obstacles and energy obstacles. You get through it, maybe slowly, but you'll get through it. And when we remember that, we remember, hey, we used to be okay with suffering and we had grit and we got through it and we went through the fire and we came out and we were warriors. We got to remember that. So I'll leave you with that. I hope you have a wonderful day, evening. It is late here in Australia. It's 1:11 in the morning. So I'm going to call it quits for here because I got to be up in a few hours. But it was really nice to connect with you. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I can't wait to see you next episode, Little Moon Muffins. And I'll talk to you later.